The Passion According to G.H. by Clarice Lispector. I just finished rereading it. This is the second time I've read it in the last, year and a half or 2 years. And my overall impression of it now, on the second rereading, is pretty much the same as it was on my first reading of it. It's about a woman in the space of a day, I guess, alone in her apartment, who is undergoing a kind of spiritual transformation. To be more precise, she's undergoing an ego death. She's losing her own ego, her own personal identity, and replacing it with a much more cosmic view of things. And she finds this transformation she's undergoing alternately exhilarating and frightening. It's mostly frightening for her. I guess a psychologist would call this depersonalization. From a psychologist or a psychiatrist's point of view, this depersonalization that she's undergoing would be a kind of sickness. I guess a psychiatrist would probably load her up on, SSRIs and antipsychotic pills. From the point of view of Eastern philosophy, Eastern meditation, what she's doing is attaining the kind of insights that I guess a person would obtain by practicing meditation. But apparently, my sense of it is that this main character, G.H., not main character, the only character in this novel, she's not somebody who meditates. She doesn't undergo this transformation in a gradual way, in a gradual, disciplined way over a number of years, which is what happens when you practice, I guess, meditation in the spirit. If you practice these kinds of spiritual exercise over a long period of time, she's undergoing this very quickly, very fast, and because it's so accelerated, this transformation, as I say, it kind of scares the hell out of her. So what exactly is the nature of her transformation? Well, it's this. She's beginning to see, in a nutshell, without being coy about it, she's beginning to understand that when a person is born, well, she's beginning to understand that the true nature of life is chaos, is chaotic. There is no meaning to life, or if there is a meaning, it's completely beyond human beings. For all intents and purposes, from our point of view, it's chaotic. However, from pretty much the moment we're born, people, man, humanity, we see chaos as the enemy. And we try to get a hand on, we see it as something which is very frightening, chaos. There's nothing more frightening in the world to us than chaos. I mean, when you ask a person, which would you rather have, chaos or order? I think that 9,999 people out of 10,000, maybe more than that, would say, well, obviously we want order. This is just almost understood by everyone. It's taken for granted. If something is chaotic without any form or any order, well, that's a bad thing. And so you try to set things aright by giving it order. This is the nature of life. This point of view infects every aspect of life. We organize everything. We organize, philosophy organizes everything. Religion organizes everything. thought organizes everything. We just seem to need that. We need to categorize everything, because by categorizing things, we're able to contain the chaos. Instead of just seeing this gigantic amorphous chaos all over the place, this protean lava or fluid that you can't really get a handle on. Instead of doing that, what man likes to do is say, wait a minute, what this chaos really is this, and it can be broken down to this, and this. So we're containing the chaos. We're categorizing different aspects of it. We're giving the chaos form or forms. And when we do that, when we contain the chaos, we feel we have control over it. And when we have control over something, we've now given it meaning, we've mastered it, and now our lives make sense. We're not just floating in some kind of a void. Well, G.H., the main character in this novel, it's not really a novel, whatever you want to call it, self-confession, G.H. comes to have precisely the opposite point of view. She begins to realize that that categorization and trying to carve forms out of chaos, she calls the chaos, she has a whole different kind of terminology. Instead of calling it chaos, G.H. calls it neutrality. She says the universe is neutral. The universe doesn't have any particular morality in terms of good or bad. It doesn't have any sort of aesthetic sense. Something's beautiful or something's ugly. She says these are all just arbitrary anthropocentric categorizations that man imposes or tries to impose on chaos. But basically life, the universe, everything, before life, during life, after death, it all comes down to this unspeakable, inexpressible, I call it chaos, she calls it neutrality. And she's beginning to see that everything she's learned in life is just a cover-up or a mask to protect us from this appreciation of this neutrality or this chaos. And she finds this very, very frightening. It's in a way, I find this to be a very, very, like I say, it's a book that a person would relate to if they're into meditation. I guess that's why I'm interested in it. I immediately felt that I knew what she's talking about in this book. She's constantly referring to this dynamic between neutrality or chaos and the intense desire that human beings have not to recognize neutrality in chaos, but to impose their own anthropocentric form on everything. She's constantly referring to it. Let me give you a couple of examples, okay? She says at one point, she has these little gems, these little pearls of wisdom all throughout the book. There's no real progression or order to the way in which she drops them. Here's one of them. She says, the world has no intention of beauty, and that would have shocked me before she's undergoing this transformation. Not even the aesthetic plane of goodness, and that would have shocked me before. The thing is much more than that. God is greater than goodness and its beauty. Getting rid of all of that means so great a disillusionment. So she's saying to get rid of these arbitrary notions of form that have been imposed upon us pretty much since birth, it's a very, very disillusioning and frightening experience. She says humanity is steeped in she calls, another word she uses, her own particular parlance, is humanization. Humanization is another term she uses for the categorization of that which is formless, that which is beyond categories. When we humanize something, we try to make the chaotic and the neutral understandable to us. That's humanization. And she says humanization, humanity is steeped in humanization. And that false humanization, false, it's an artificial construct, impedes man and impedes his humanity. There exists a thing that is broader, deeper, and deeper, less good, less bad, less pretty. So neutrality, chaos, the void, the abyss, whatever you want to call it, it's beyond all of man's petty conceptions of it. It is truly inexpressible, which drives man crazy, and kind of drives her crazy to a certain extent. And she's making an attempt in this, or Spector is making an attempt in this book of hers, The Passion of G.H., to describe this inexpressible void, this inexpressible chaos, without branding it, without categorizing it at all, in any way. And she says that while she's undergoing this transformation, she's going to be saying things which don't really make sense. And frankly, a lot of the things that she says don't make sense in this book. Now, here's the part that's a little bit different in the second reading of The Passion of G.H. I am very much attracted to G.H.'s view of the cosmos, of existence, as being neutral, as being chaotic, completely. And every once in a long while, I think the book is like 200 pages or something, every once in a long while, G.H. or Clarice Lispector will give us an insight, will give us a gem, which is great. Like she really knocks it out of the ballpark. But for me, on the second reading, there's a lot of writing in this which is kind of gibberish. It doesn't really make sense. It's too abstract. And she piles abstraction upon abstraction upon abstraction, and it doesn't work for me. I wish she would have edited all this stuff out. It gets to be too much. Again, if you don't know where she's coming from with this vision of neutrality that she has and of the inherent formlessness of everything, if you're not into this book is going to make absolutely no sense to you at all, and I highly doubt that you're going to read more than 10 pages of it. I did. I really feel that I know what she's talking about, and I'm in great sympathy for what she's talking about. However, where I disagree with all of the other booktube booktubers that I've listened to discussing this book, where I disagree is that with them is in the sense that the book is, a lot of it is just gibberish. Put it this way, I would say about 15 to 20% of this book is terrific. She hits it out of the ballpark. But the other 80%, she's all over the place. It's way, way too abstract. Now, a lot of people, first of all, no other book reviewer that I've listened to actually talks about the actual guts of the writing. They all just say that she has this mystical vision and it's wonderful and every part about it is just terrific. And I didn't find that to be true. I mean, there are parts of this book, as I say, which are unintelligible, and I guess other people would excuse this unintelligibility of the book by saying, well, look, G.H. is trying to discuss the inexpressible, and so if it seems like it's unintelligible, well, that's only because she's talking about that which is unintelligible. That doesn't do it for me. On some level, no matter what you're talking about, even if you're talking about the inexpressible, you have to talk about it in an intelligent way. On some level, you can't just excuse gibberish by saying, well, she's talking about very difficult subjects. That doesn't do it for me. Nobody talks about this. I seem to be the only one that's picked up on this. And I'm going to give you some specific examples of what I'm talking about. Let me give you a few. Bear with me. Here's one. But you are afraid, I know, that you were always afraid of rituals. When one is so tortured until she becomes a nucleus, then one changes demonically to wanting to serve ritual, even if the ritual is the act of self-consumption. Just as for there to be incense, one must burn incense. Listen, because I am as serious as a cockroach with cilia. Listen. When a person is her own nucleus, she can have no more disparities. Then she is her own solemnity and no longer fears self-consumption in the service of consuming ritual. Ritual is the very life of the nucleus carrying itself out. The ritual is not outside it, the ritual is inherent. The cockroach has its ritual within its cell. Ritual, believe in me because I think I understand now. Ritual is the mark. Okay, that's one. Anyway, here's another one. Night is my life, it grows late. The happy night is my sad life. Steal the horse from me, because from theft to theft I have stolen even the dawn and made it a foreboding. Quickly steal the horse while it's time, while it's not too late, if there is in fact still time. For to steal the horse I had to kill the king, and in killing him I have stolen the king's death. And the happiness of the murder consumes me with the pleasure. I was consuming myself, for I too am living matter of the Sabbath. That doesn't mean anything at all to me. The book is literally filled, I'd say about 80% of the book is filled with this kind of stuff that I don't get. Again, I'm sympathetic to what she's saying. I think I understand what she's saying, but so much of the book is written like this. It just doesn't make sense to me. Here's another one. Okay, here's one more. But now that I know, But now that I knew that suffering had been my happiness, I asked myself if I wasn't fleeing towards a God because I couldn't bear my humanity. For I needed someone who would not be as insignificant as I, someone who would be so much greater than I that he could admit my disgrace without even using pity and consolation, someone who would be, and not, like myself, an accuser of nature, and not, like myself, someone frightened by the power of my own hate and loves. At this moment now a doubt overtakes me. God, or whatever you are called, I now ask only one bit of help, but it is that you help me, not in the obscure way in which you are me, but now openly in plain sight. This just is a little bit too abstract for me. I can take this in small doses, but this is the bulk of the novel. Then, in the midst of all of this this abstraction, gibberish, whatever you want to call it, she comes up with these brilliant observations. For instance, she says at one point, she says, "My way of seeing was entirely impartial. I worked directly with the evidence of my sight, without letting suggestions other than visual ones predetermine my conclusions. I was wholly prepared to surprise myself, even if the evidence should contradict what I had decided on in my most tranquil delirium." I like that very much. I mean, what she's really describing is the way that an artist paints. My way of seeing is impartial. I work directly with the evidence of my sight, without letting suggestions other than the visual ones predetermine my conclusions. In other words, very simply, what she's saying is, when you're an artist, if you see, for instance, a shadow on snow, well, what is the shadow, the color of the shadow? To a non-artist, they would draw just something dark, gray, or something like that. But if you really look hard at the shadow, your eyes tell you that the shadow is blue. It's a shade of blue. If you look at some silverware on a table, a pewter mug, if you're not an artist, you're not going to use what you see through your eyes and through your eyes only to paint that. You're going to want to paint it with a silver color. It's not silver when you paint metal. It's a combination of white and gray. If you look closely, that's what your eyes are seeing, but non-artists don't see that. So what she's doing is she's saying, I'm not going to categorize things in the usual way that I've been taught to categorize them. I am going to just dispense with all that and explore the neutrality of things. She says, if truth were what I can understand, it would end up by being but a small truth, my-sized. Truth must reside precisely in what I shall never understand. Well, that's what neutrality is. That's what chaos is. That's what existence is before we try to tame it and give it definition with all of our forms. So she comes up with gems like this. And I know exactly what she's talking about, but she comes up with it so rarely that it's just completely frustrating. It's almost an unreadable book, unfortunately. That's basically what I want to say about this. When she's hot, she's hot. And when she's not, she's not. When she's hot, she's smoking hot. And when she's not, it's just abstract gibberish, piled on more gibberish. I'm sorry to have to say that. I've listened to podcasters who say, no, every single line here has importance and has meaning. And I just didn't find that to be true. One has to be realistic about that. And again, one cannot excuse this abstraction bordering on gibberishness by saying, well, she's talking about the inexpressible. I get the feeling reading this book that Clarice Lispector is trying to reach insights or reach an insight, and it takes her about 30 or 40 pages to finally reach 30 or 40 pages of hopeless abstraction to finally crystallize it in something which is beautifully expressed. And then she goes back to her gibberish, her groping again. And then she finally comes up with a handle on it again. It's like that. I did not find it a very satisfying read. It was not exciting reading this book at all. I mean, this book is sure as hell is not going to be summer reading that you read on a beach. That's for damn sure. So that's it. That's it. It's not just, a woman exploring the nature of existence. That's a little bit too vague for me. It's really about a woman undergoing an ego death, seeing that everything that she's learned in life has just been an arbitrary form or category or a label. And once you dispense with that, there's just the void. She sees that, she mentions, for instance, her luggage. She has her own initials, G period, H period, on her luggage. She says, this is just a mask which I wear. It's a persona which I wear and which we all wear. And it's only when you remove the mask, if you want to see what's underneath the mask, that she discovers all this stuff that I'm talking about. It's really a book that is, once again, I have to be crude about it. It's really kind of a book that people who are attracted to meditation would read, who are interested in ridding themselves or seeing what their thoughts are in perspective, of seeing what their own personal histories, personal lives, personal egos, personal hang-ups, personal triumphs and failures are in a larger perspective. If you're not into that, if you just want to have a story with a plot and with conventional characters, this book is not for you. And I have to say also that I've listened to quite a number of reviews of this book, and none of them criticizes the writing, the flaws in the writing. It's very heroic what Spector is doing. She's taking on the biggest of all opponents, the nature of everything. You got to hand it to her. She's fearless to do that. But she does it in an imperfect way, which is understandable. So you got to give her credit for doing this. Very few writers tackle this subject. The other writer that comes to mind, as I've said in several other podcasts, who tackle this subject of the inherent chaos or neutrality of life, of everything, would be Witold Gombrowicz in Cosmos. But he does it in more of a comical way. There's more of a plot to it, and I think he does it in a much more effective way. But he is talking about exactly the same thing. He's talking about the actual comical nature of the way that man frantically tries to give form to everything, to categorize everything, to try to put everything in a box. And of course, when you try to categorize that which is uncategorizable, well, you've immediately eviscerated the importance of it. And Specter talks about this at great length in her book, which again I have to hand her credit for. When you begin to categorize or make a system out of something, you've lost the essential spark of that which you have glimpsed. And she's very, very aware of this. When you try to categorize the inexpressible with words, you lose the essence of it. So I appreciate that, what she's doing. I think that Gombrowicz does it better, though. I think that booktubers in general are just like they're regular people. And I think that booktubers tend to have a herd mentality. I noticed that I read Stoner by John Williams, and I noticed that somebody somewhere along the line said that Stoner is the perfect novel. And so I read a number of reviews, and they all had the word perfect in it. They literally said, one review's title was Stoner, the perfect novel. Another one said, this is the perfect novel. A third one said, this is perfection. It's like they're on automatic pilot. It's like a kind of a gossip. Nobody, the people stop thinking. Even booktubers, who are supposed to be are the lanterns of Diogenes. You know, I mean, even booktubers just kind of accept things blindly. One person says it's perfect, so another person echoes that. Well, I think the same thing is going on with The Passion of G.H. Everybody is saying this is the perfect novel in the sense that it's just explains everything. It's all profound. It's not all profound. It is a piece of writing after all. And a lot of the writing leaves a lot to be desired. It's way, way too abstract, too much of the time. Before she gets to these dazzling insights, she has to grope. And the groping part is a mess. And I stand by that. You have to look at this critically as a piece of writing. So I love what you're saying, Clarice Specter. I'm with you. I feel great sympathy for you. What you're saying is pretty profound, but you're only able to express this profundity sporadically throughout this well near impossible book to read. Thank you.